Welcome back everyone to Vectorworks 2014 with James Russell. It is a fine Sunday afternoon here. I've got Savoys and a bit of camembert cheese on my desk, and what better to be doing than a postgrad assignment video. I've been teaching the postgrad class now for about 8 weeks, and we've come around to assignment time. I've designed a cool little assignment that we're all going to work through today and just see what really happens with it. A lot of you have already started on this, and for those of you playing along at home, just have a go if you want to, otherwise you can watch along with me and we'll just see what happens. The assignment goes like this. I've drawn a theatre, as you can see in front of me. It's a very basic, simple theatre. We're only working in the 2D world for our postgrad classes at the moment. We will transition to 3D eventually, and we'll have a whole heap of reading material about all of that coming up. Then, once we've imported our theatre, which comes as a standalone file like so, we're going to move across to this, which is a PDF that I've made up for everyone. Inside it, there's a few little bits and pieces to do. The first thing is that I've designed this little bedroom, and I say designed in the loosest of terms possible. It's just missing its fourth wall dimension to it and a little bit of the third in this particular case. It's got a few rough dimensions on it, and we just want to represent this as best we can on the stage itself. Door position is crucial in this particular instance, but the window position, as stated by this outline, is quite flexible in terms of size and position and things like that. It gives you a bit of freedom to play with it. And then once you've drawn that in your space and presented that nicely on a page, we need to present two other things. We need to present a solo view, like we've got here, of the bedroom with a few items of furniture in it in plan view. So there's 4 categories of furniture. I'm going to run you through them now. It goes like this. There's a bed, and you can choose one of these 4 beds. A chair, one of these 4 chairs. We've got tables, quite a nice array here, and also some lamps, 5 of those. So we need to represent those in plan view, which means we're just drawing a 2D top-down view of each of these and throwing them in that bedroom. And the final step is we're going to choose 2 of these, one from each category, so it might be a lamp and a bed, or a chair and a desk, that's up to you. And we're going to also present those with a front, side and top view nicely on a piece of paper as well, as though they were to be sent off and to be constructed by a workshop. So that's the plan. I'm going to just take a minor break here, get my workspace set up, and then as soon as we're ready to go, we'll just go for it. See you in a second. So about 2 Savoys later, I've set up my workspace, got everything in the way that I want it to be. I'm just going to jump there. Those of you who freak out a little bit, don't. It's okay. I'm using the Windows version of Vectorworks, mainly because that's what my license is for. But those of you with a Mac, it's okay. It's all in the same position. All the menus are pretty much the same. The shortcut keys are relatively similar. You mainly replace your control key with your Apple or Command key, and everything flows from there. As always, if I do say something, for example, if I was to tell you to add surface, you can just jump in any of these menus, and I'll often give you the menu command for these. And if you look here, right of the actual name of whatever the operation is that you're going for, they'll always have the shortcut key listed here, whether you're on the Windows version or the Mac version. So don't forget that it can be there if you do need to find it. For example, trim here, Control T is most probably going to be Command T on your Mac. So that's one thing to note here. So initially, we've been given the theatre. I've just grouped my theatre quickly here, but it will probably just appear like this to all of you. Just because I didn't need it anymore. And you'll notice there's only one layer currently to this document called the base theatre. So that means we're going to need to set up a few more design layers, and then we're going to set up a few more sheet layers as well for our final presentation stages. So initially, straight off, I know that my next step is that I'm going to need to draw this bedroom inside this plan. Now I could draw it as a separate entity and bring it in. I'm just going to draw it straight where it's going to end up. So let's do that now. Firstly, we need a design layer to put this on. So I've clicked on my organisation button up here, the little stack of paper, and I'm all of a sudden in my Design Layers tab. Now I've got one here already. I'm simply going to click New, and then I'm going to edit this as I feel fit. So this one for me is going to be Bedroom Set. Okay, and I like to tick this little box here, Edit Properties After Creation, which means that I'll be able to jump straight into editing that, make sure that all of this is fine. In most of your design layers it doesn't matter, but once you get onto your sheet layers it will matter. This is a common discussion that we've always had, and I still intend on releasing another video on this, but scale. Initially, scale can be a rough concept to get in your head. A lot of people who will watch this video will go, scale's this way, scale is that way, and there are 2 main ways to think about the scaling of objects. One way is that you can leave your drawing at 1:1, draw all of your objects out, and then you can just transfer all of that across into your sheet layers, and then on the annotations of that sheet layer, pick up the adaptive styling of text from your sheet layer and pick up the vital information in terms of scale from your design layer, and that's where those two meld together. The other option is, if you know that you're going to be presenting this at 1:50 on an A1 sheet, if you know it's going to be 1:25 on an A3 sheet, you can set that up at this point in time. And that's how a lot of draftspeople will do that. They'll initially just go, this is going to end up on an A3 sheet of paper at 1:50. I'm just going to set it here. All of my text is going to be on the drawing. It's a discussion that we're going to have later on, so don't freak out about that. But it is something that needs to be noted, that people will have difference of opinion on this. Okay, one way is not correct nor better than the other in some instances. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 1:1. That's where I'm just going to stop that discussion, and we'll talk about that later. Everything here though should be fine. Hitting OK. The one thing I do want to note here, which a lot of people have trouble with, is that the base theatre set is below the bedroom set, and that's how you want it to be in this stacking order here. You can see it's got a 1 and a 2. That stacking order is for the 2D world to know which layer is on top. And the most common problem that people have is that these layers here, such as base theatre, will be on top. And all of a sudden the lines will be crossing over, things will be filled in over the top of other things. And most commonly it's a stacking order issue between your design layers. You can also have stacking order issues on a layer itself, such as a rectangle over a square, and we've often encountered that in terms of clipping. But in this particular example, just make sure that your bedroom set is on top of your base theatre. If for some reason it's the other way around, you can click and drag these around. See, I just grabbed this item here and moved it down. And I can do that again to make sure they're on top. And just one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the visibility of my base theatre to grey. We've got these 3 columns: visible, invisible, and grey. All this is covered in our layers video from last year. Hitting OK, and we end up with this. We're on the bedroom set layer, everything's looking good. This has been grayed out. You can see that I can no longer pick up these items, I can't select them, but I can still snap to them. Notice my cursor is still snapping around the page to each of these items. So outright, I'm instantly looking at this, which I've got on my side screen so you guys can't see it, but there will be a link in the video description to the PDF for this assignment. And we instantly have a playing space of 5 meters by 7 meters. That's 7 meters across, sorry, 5 meters high. So I'm instantly just going to draw a rectangle of that size. The easiest way for me to do that is to do a double click, simply type in those values, 7,000 and 5,000. I'm going to use the position next click, and I'm just simply going to select the middle of the stage. I can always shuffle this around within my space once I've designed all the elements around it. Well, that's really cool. That's just a 2D rectangle placed in the space, and I can check the dimensions over here in the object info. The next step for me is that I'm going to do a couple of marker lines after I've drawn. Do I need to draw that? Let's draw some walls first. That's a great idea. Grabbing our wall tool from the building shell tool set. It's in our advanced options here. If you are missing this tool set or any of the palettes I have on the screen today, you can jump into your Windows palettes and find them in here. So the tool set and the basic tool set should always be on, and some of these you might selectively turn on or off. This is pretty much my default though. And from there I'm going to grab the wall tool. We're leaving it on unstyled today just because it is a simple set, so that means it's probably going to have a wall thickness of 150. I can check that with the settings button, which it does here, and that's the default. And there is also one more note about which drawing direction we want to use here. It won't really matter because I can shuffle it early, so I'm going to try and draw it the wrong way the first time, which will be this way. So I've done a simple left click and up to this other corner here, and the wall, if you're looking at the diagram once again, is on the wrong side. I can easily jump across with the U key and swap between those modes up the top. As you can see, I'm on the wrong side here. I press it again, it moves to the middle, and then I press it again and it heads towards that left hand side, sorry. So I'm going to click there and finalize that wall, and that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. The next step that I need to do is draw some of these extension walls. Now there's two ways I could draw it. I could start drawing and I could then simply enter a numerical value, but I really like personally to have some sort of marker there, and I use rectangles for that. So let me just zoom in here, and I'm going to draw a simple rectangle, and I'm currently on a wrong mode. There we go. So I've just chosen the diagonal corner to corner mode for this, and I can simply press tab at any point in time to jump into that particular rectangle's coordinate set data and enter in another value. So I'm going to do it at 925 in a negative direction here, and I'll lock that in and get this handy little red marker point that says you're restrained now to a negative x direction of 925. I'm going to just leave that there, and we're done. So, what does that allow me to do? Well, it allows me to draw this wall in a very particular way. It allows me to start at this marker point now and head all the way across here and finalize that wall. That's pretty cool, but our walls haven't joined, okay? If you are drawing a continuous wall, like I'll show you here, where you head around a corner, your wall will automatically join, like that. If you've drawn them as I have here, they won't deliberately join. There's two ways to fix this. The first one is that you can grab this wall here, the one that's intersecting into our other wall, when my computer catches up with me, and you can make it intersect that wall by dragging it through, and it will automatically join that wall together. The other option, I've just done an undo there with Control Z for me, or Apple Z for those of you on a Mac, is that you can use the wall join tool, and you just need to make sure when you're using this tool that you choose the correct junction. In our case it's a T junction, and we just select one wall, then the other wall, and Vectorworks will automatically make that decision for us to join those two walls together. People have a lot of trouble with the wall tool, and it is a little bit finicky at times. There are some crazy intersections that you just won't know what type of joining to use, and sometimes that's because they are impractical to actually build, and Vectorworks says, I don't actually know how to build this. So you've really got to watch out for that. The last stage over here is that I need to make sure that this has a return on this wall of -1000 in the Y direction, so I'm simply going to type that in. There we go. I've made a rectangle, it's 1000 high, and I'm simply going to grab my wall tool, and in this case I'm going to start highlighting the wall here in red. That means I'm intersecting with the wall and heading down here, and Vectorworks automatically makes that acknowledgement that that needs to be a nice little corner there. So one more return down here, which is another 925. Once again, I don't have a reference for this, so I'm simply just going to draw a rectangle, 925 inside there, and then once again, just draw a wall. This one across to here, it's on the wrong side. I can just simply switch that direction with the U key, and we've joined that on. So in no time at all, I've managed to get my walls up inside my drawing, and we're pretty happy there. Next thing I need to do is pop in this door. Now, the door is particular, and I've given you a set of data here, or a little piece of data about it, that the door is 896 millimeters wide. Now, that's the opening for the door, and we've also got 485 to the midpoint. The cheeky advantage to me recording this way is that you don't know that I just had 2 Savoys and a glass of water, and now I'm back here again. The cheeky thing about this is that I am actually going to draw this in a particular way. The first thing I want to do is, once again, using a rectangle, because they're my favourite tool, is I'm going to mark that midpoint, which is in the Y direction. So it's a tab by me, -485. Enter, enter, and I've got a box that represents that. So this corner here is now meeting 485 down from that point. That's step one, really, to get the location of that. There's several other ways you could do it. You could put it in this locking up here into here and then move it down the certain amount that you need to do, and etc, etc. But I just like doing it this way, and if you have a different method, that's not wrong, it's just different. The second part is that we need to put this door in. So first thing I'm going to do is choose center mode insertion up here. You can see it's got several different insertion options. If I have a look, my cursor is currently in the center of this door. If I choose the left hand mode, I'm on the left hand side of the door, and right hand mode conversely on the right hand side. The second part about this is that I can just go and plonk this door down, but I may as well set the settings up while I'm placing it. So I've clicked the little pencil and spanner next to my door tool, and it's brought up the door settings function. Now this is really good if you're setting down multiple sets of doors. If you're going to be putting down 20 doors inside a building, you want to make sure that you set up all the settings first, then plonk all those doors down. Whereas you might like to go the converse way to that, and you might like to choose to place down all the doors first, then set up their settings. There's no right or wrong answer here. Now, the most important part, which we discovered in class when actually doing this, is setting the size reference inside here. There's 3 different types of size referencing inside Vectorworks. We've got the rough opening, which is the largest size. That's the size of the cavity that the builder actually allows for when he's setting up the framing and all of that stuff for you to then insert the door into. And then you've also got unit and leaf size. These are relatively close. The leaf size is probably going to be a little bit smaller. It's actually the size of the leaf of the inside of the door. And then the unit size is probably your manufacturer's outside external size with all framing and everything else. As you can see down here, the height of the door measure the outside of the jamb. So that's all very good, and I'm just making sure this is fine. Those units there are okay. So we want to make sure that our unit size is approximately this size, 896, which is fine. When you're coming to the dimensioning stage, depending if you're dimensioning the 2D realm or the 3D realm, those tolerances might vary because, as we've noted, and I'll try and show it to you here, So I'm going to snap to this corner, insert across into the wall. See how I've picked up with my smart points, which is this here, smart points, turned on. I can hover over this wall a little bit longer than I expect to, get that red marker, jump across into the wall, making sure that my wall's red, as that means I'm inserting into the wall, and then approaching this point, and we get a lovely little snap marker there. And I can place this. My door opens this way, remembering that your door will always face towards your cursor, the quadrant that your cursor is in. So I need to face it this way, left click again and finalize that choice. Now as I've done that, my computer's just having another little think about that as it's recording on the fly. I've got my door, it's come up here now, I've got all the options that I want to, but I just want to show you the tolerances in here. This is the 2D representation. If I quickly switch to the 3D, you'll notice that we now get the allowance for the door itself within that wall. And occasionally when you're trying to mark things out, that will seem like an oddity that you're actually able to see that in a 2D and a 3D sense, but it is designed so that you can then send your framing data, which you can do eventually in Vectorworks, take the framing data for those walls and doors and send it off to someone so that they can manufacture that. Super. So now I can go ahead and delete this rectangle here, and we're really happy with that door in terms of its placement. The next part about this is that we need to plonk down a window, and this is the last component for this little segment. We are going to place this anywhere within this wall that we like, and it can be any size that we like. One thing people normally don't seem to note is that windows actually do have a facing direction. It's the same plugin as the door plugin, just replicated in terms of a window using symbols and a few different tabs and leaves and things. It's the same thing though. It will always face your cursor in terms of a, and I use inverted commas here, open direction. Although you mightn't see it, you do have a left and a right side, and then you also have an interior and outer facing option for it. So you always want to make sure you click on the outer face of your wall when you're placing a window down. So I'm on this side, and there we go. It'll take a moment to load that plugin, and we've got some values here. I'm just going to, for example, change the width here. Let's make this a really nice long 1800 window. So it's something like that. And that's all I need to do for that. I could obviously put awnings on it, and I could put a little flower pot out the front, etc, etc. But for the purposes of this exercise, that entity is done. Let me just make sure. And I've just checked my reference diagram, and it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to grab all of this and group it. And then I'm just going to do a little shuffle here to move it more centrally to the space. And as I said before, although it's not mentioned in the assignment, I always intended to rotate my set slightly just to give it a little bit more of a hint of a sight line, so it would end up actually like so. Not required for the assignment, but that's how I'd always envisioned this set, and that's why it has this tiny return here, is purely to allow these people here, if you were to draw a sight line from this chair through this doorway, it would cover most of that region through there. That's all well and good though, and I'm pretty happy with that. So the next step is that we need to move on to drawing our objects in 2D. So obviously this task could be done in a 3D sense, and sometimes it is. My second year classes do this exact same task, except they do it in a 3D format. We're going to do it in the 2D format, which gives us a lot more playtime with drawing elements. So disregarding all of this, I've opened the organization panel again. I'm going to turn off both of these layers, and I'm going to make two new layers. So I'm going to choose, let's do a bed. That's a good idea. So I can do bed detail here. That's all good. And I'm also going to do a new one called, what else do we want to do? Let's do table. Completely random. There we go. Now, these two here, they don't matter about their order. They could go beneath the theatre or they could go on top. In my preference, I'm going to put them on top, like so. And both their details are on. I'm just going to start work on the table first. So you can see it is my active layer with this tick, and its visibility is on. All of the other visibilities are off. Hitting OK, all of that will disappear, and I'm now back to a standard kind of format, I guess. And I often click the zoom to page button in the design world because it takes you back to that 00 marker on your page most commonly, unless you've moved the origin. That is the exception to that rule. So I'm going to take a moment to pause, and now that I'm back, I've just had a quick look at some of those images, and included in my normal pack you get all of the individual images. So I'm just going to click and drag an image into Vectorworks like so from my other screen that you guys can't see. Just using a standard JPEG compression, we get a little representation of the bed that I'm going to draw today. which is quite an easy one, I think, in my opinion. It's not too bad. I'm going to attempt to draw the cushions in, but we'll see how we go. Otherwise, just the core concept of this is what we want to get down in terms of scale drawing. Now, a lot of people have trouble sizing objects up in Vectorworks and getting them to an approximate size. Particularly just if you're starting out as a beginner, you might know. So what's always a good idea is to just find something similar to what you're drawing. Now, in this case, it's really easy because I can instantly say, it's probably a double bed. So I open up my Wikipedia or my Google, find out the size for a double bed, and I can instantly tell that in Australia, a double bed is 137 centimetres by 191 centimetres. That's outright giving me details that I can use here. I'm instantly going to choose the rounded rectangle option from my basic tool set, and I'm going to plug in the data here that I want a width of 137 centimetres, which translates to 1,370 millimetres, just adding a 0 there for that, and 191 centimetres, so that's me slipping on my keyboard, which is 1,910 in terms of height. I can just simply plonk that down anywhere I want, and you can see it's quite large, but that's okay. I'm going to drag that out to the side, and I'm also just, while I'm here, scaling my reference image up so that I can keep working at this size now. So there we go, my reference image is next to this, which is a rounded rectangle. Now, it doesn't look rounded because my corners are micro small, but they are down there somewhere. So that's all pretty good. I am now going to add on a symmetrical corner here, and I'm just going to guesstimate this diameter X and diameter Y in terms of corners. People have a little bit of trouble with. There's symmetrical, proportional, and unconstrained. Proportional, you don't get this option. It will just choose to put a proportional corner on that scales to be the size of your length and height. Width and height. So if in this case you can see that it is more curvy in terms of length in the higher or the heights region, and in the width it isn't quite as curvy, and it's just done that proportionally as you'd expect. There's two other options though: symmetrical, which means that both the corners are the same. You can see in this case 475, and that's a perfectly round corner, and that 475 represents the diameter of that circle inside there. So if we run our little measuring stick across here, if I had it on a logical mode of drawing, you would see that we're at 228 is the radius of that. Double that and you get 475-ish, given some rounding values, etc, etc. So that's what that value represents. Now in this case I'm going to keep it on symmetrical. You could also choose unconstrained, which lets you play with both of those values if you need to. In symmetrical land, that's probably a bit too much of a corner. I'm going to drop that back, and I'm simply looking at my bed next door, and I'm going to choose around 100mm, and we'll just see how that looks. That's pretty fair in my opinion of a bed. So now in terms of translation, what else have we got? We need to do the bed head and throw on a couple of these pillows in some sort of fashion. So I'm going to start with the bed head. It's on an angle here, but obviously from the downwards perspective all you would see is a rectangle. But we want to make sure that rectangle is comparable in other views as well. Using the center mode out again, I think on this, we'll draw out to the exterior of the bed, and I'm actually going to once again lock that X value in. So now I'm restrained. I simply did that by hovering on a point too long, and once I've got that I can press tab and lock in that value. So now I just need to choose the height for this bed head. It's going to be a guesstimation once again. Let's say that it is 150mm on the diagonal, like so. It does seem to have slight rounded corners, and we may as well give it that extra little bit of detail by grabbing our fillet edge tool here. Fillet radius of about 25 seems about right, and selecting those two edges like so, and here again rounding out that corner. It's just a visual thing for us to have a look at. And then lastly, there's some cushions on that bed. Now my second year class had a great session the other day filleting and using the rounded rectangle and drape tools combined to make 3D pillows. We won't discuss that today, but I will be using the rounded rectangle tool in this instance to make some pillows. They're not going to look exactly like this, but we might make one of them look like that. We'll see how we're feeling. So simply just drawing an arbitrary size here, which is about half of the bed, like that. And I'm just going to try and choose a reasonable size for a pillow. That seems about it. Give that a little nudge into place, and probably a unconstrained corner here. The sizing looks almost right. I think if anything this diameter here needs to be about 50, which kind of rounds them out a bit more, and we might just drop that back to about 150 and see how that looks. That's okay. That's not too bad. In terms of representation for this, it's okay. drawing a mirror across that mirror line there. So I've simply grabbed the mirror tool, mirror in duplicate mode, and drawn the mirror plane to flip it over. And then we've got two more pillows. One of them is a slight angle, and then the other one looks like it's going to be another. So I'm going to call this one here, the one behind the yellow cushion, at a 45 degree, and this one here on a 30 degree angle. So first out, I'm just going to draw those as basic shapes, probably about this size, and then I might even copy that, and we will just drop that back a bit, or even use the scale objects command, and let's say that I want to scale it down to 90% of its size. I can do a bit of this. This is one thing that we learnt the other day about scaling objects using symmetrical by distance. You can actually put proportions in. So if I want to do 90%, it's 90% of 100, and that will drop that back by 10% as shown here. Play with the corners a little bit if you'd like, but I'm just going to leave them as they are for this example, and simply plop these right down here on the bed. I'll use a center marker snap to get that relatively close, something like that. And then using my value rotation here, I can simply type 45 and twist that on its edge. It's actually slightly offset, so let's do that. And we should probably make that an actual offset value. So I'm going to move that from its current position. That was a Control M for me, or an Apple M for those of you on a Mac. And just so that we've chosen a logical number, it's going to be an offset of 100 to the right. Then our second little pillow here, I can simply throw in another rotation of 30 degrees in there for him. And he's going to be plonked down right on top of that center line now, somewhere here. And that's not too bad. Obviously the fins aren't shown in a plan view. We'll have to try and figure those out from a side view and a front view in a moment. But let's leave it like that for now and start the front translation. So translating is really easy in Vectorworks. Obviously if we're drawing this in 3D, it's very easy. We use viewport translation to easily come across what we need to do. But 2D translation's not too bad either. It's okay. And the reason I say all of that is that it's really easy to just grab a rounded rectangle and just compare it to another object. So I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to say bed height is about 200 mil. So if I type in negative 200 in here and grab that, I've already drawn a rectangle, a rounded rectangle in this case. It's the size of the bed, but I've also included the depth. So if I now drag that down, you can instantly see our translation starting to happen. Now I deliberately chose a rounded rectangle so that I could use unconstrained corners, and I could simply type in a couple of values here, like probably only about 25 mil there, and in this direction it's going to be about 30. It just gives that little tiny rounded corner that you might have on a mattress. There's obviously beading and stuff around the edge of it, but that's okay for us for now. And then we've got this bed head here. Now the bed head in the front view is probably going to look similar to the current view that it is. So cheekily I could actually just copy that entire unit down to here. One of the things about selection, as my postgrads have had drilled into them, is that when you're picking up objects, a lot of people pick objects up like this. They'll click on the object itself, and then they'll go and try and grab one of these handles, and they'll try and move an object, and they'll end up resizing the object or making it bigger or smaller, etc., etc. There's one particular way that I love to teach picking up objects. It's that you don't have the object selected, and then you approach a point, and you need to make sure you have this on, the snap to objects attribute. This is how my attribute panel looks all the time. It never changes from this, to be honest. Never, ever, ever. But having snap to corners on allows you to float on a point. Let's float on this midpoint here. And you can see the moment that that highlight text comes up and says midpoint, I know that if I grab it while I've got that text up, I am grabbing the smack bang midpoint of that. I'm not going to pick it up here and attempt to drag it in and then it's offset. That's just wrong. What you want to do is approach the point, grab it when it says that name, and drag it until you see. See that? See how it just snaps to top center? It's like dunk, dunk. I'm snapping to top center. And once you see that word there, you can let go, knowing that that midpoint that you initially picked up is perfectly snapped, no matter how far you zoom in to that top center point. So that's really important. The last thing I'm going to do here is scale this object up a fraction, just because I think it would be taller in comparison. So I'm going to pin the bottom of that box, and in our delta y, sorry, it's a plus minus in this case, it should be a delta. I don't know why they're not consistent. We could make that say 200 or 250 just to give it a bit of extra height in terms of the bed frame, and it probably, to be honest, actually extends below that point as well, another couple of hundred. So let's make that 300 and send it to the back with a Control B. So that's realistically our bed head. It just fills in that little corner detail as well that we might be missing. So that's all well and good, and then we've got pillows on top, and then we have to deal with the framing underneath. Let's do the framing first, because that seems like the fun thing to do. So, looking at this, it looks like it's about one and a bit times the height of this bed mattress. So I'm going to say our bed mattress is 200mm. Let's make these 300mm, which makes it a little bit of a high bed, but that's okay. So instantly starting out with my rectangle drawn from the center mode, I'm going to tab twice to jump inside that Y value. Let me try this again. Okay, drawing a rectangle. Sorry, I was distracted. Tab twice. Minus 300, and it locks in that value. I've given this red dotted line of doom. And then I just need to choose a width. Now, I'm just looking at this and I can instantly go, that's probably 19mm black melamine. So I can just type in negative 19mm in there. But then I want to make sure that I divide that value by 2, because otherwise we end up with 2 times 19, just because the way this measures is from the center out. So you just have to trust me on that. Negative 19 divided by 2, enter, enter, and we're left with this. That's pretty cool. Width of 19mm. Let me select that again for you. So if I hadn't have done that, it would be twice that value, just because of the way it draws this particular item. And then just a little bit of freehand drawing. We know that this diagonal, complete diagonal, which is on it's a weird degree. It's not 45, but it's approximately that. Is coming out to this very edge corner. So we know that there's one going there, and then we know that there's one which is almost making up that distance. But there are some gaps in the middle as well, as we'd expect. As you can see, the light has to be flowing out from somewhere, so we presume that these must end about 500mm back, maybe. They're just supporting arms, particularly for this thing. So we're going to grab our rectangle tool. I'm going to set a marker here, and hover a bit too long, as I like to do. And I'm also going to set one along this bottom line. That's probably my best. So now that I've got those 2 red points, I get a marker here and a marker here, and when I converge on those 2, I get this, the bottom snap, and that's what I've been looking for. I also want to grab my diagonal drawing style. I want to make a snap down here. So I've already got all of my snaps set up ready to go, and to be honest, it's probably going to end up about here somewhere. I think that diagonal one, just looking back at our picture here, if you were staring at that in a front view, would be hidden by this one, but I think we'll see the gap between these two. If you're just like, James, just shut up and draw, I'm okay with that, that's fine. So as a guesstimate, and this is all it can be, if we're drawing from an image, it's going to look something like this. Just remembering also that probably this one here, realistically, you would actually see an end face for that bit of timber as well. So if you were truly doing perspective drawing, which we're not covering today, you would see something like that. And probably on the end one as well. Now lastly, I want to grab both of those and mirror them across that face, like so. So now that mirror's done, all we need to do is the cushions, or the pillows I should say. Now I'm looking at a pillow beside me. Although they kind of look like this in a top-down view, they don't quite look like a round rectangular end-on view. So let's do something about that. The first thing I want to do is just trace one of these objects, and I'm doing a rough trace there, as you can see, and grabbing this and dragging it down. Because this is a mirrored object, I know that I can flip it at any time to create our mirror across the other side. First thing I'm doing, guessing a height overall, I'm probably going to say it's about 70mm. The next thing I'm going to do, and this is a little bit tricky, I'm going to choose my rotated rectangle mode and cut off a section of this. Now this is purely a guesstimate, I have no idea how this is going to go. So I've drawn a rotated rectangle like so. I'm also going to mirror that across the other side. And all at the same time I'm going to mirror both of those back across here, so I end up with a shape like this. Doing a subtraction, cookie cutter method, things on top cut through to the things on bottom, right click, clip surface, and hit delete. We end up with a shape like this. That's pretty close, it's getting close here. I hope some of you can see what I'm kind of going towards here. And the final thing I want to do is grab my fillet radius tool. Radius of 25 is probably a bit big. Let's drop that back to 10 and see what we end up with. Let's just do a bit of that. Or will it be enough? I don't know if there's enough to blend. No, there's not enough. Will it blend? No, it will not. That is unfortunate. So let's drop that back to a radius of 5. And we'll do a bit of this. And a bit of this. That's kind of cool. Do that on the other end as well. Obviously, I could have done a mass mirror across all of this. And the final little bit I want to do, and I don't know if I'll be able to do this, let's put that on like a radius of 100 or something like that. Just to round this little edge out. There we go. Just gives that little bit of roundness to it. And I'm going to say that's my pillow for now. I know it's not perfect and it would have sag and things like that, but like I said, my second years are now the masters of pillows, so I don't fight them anymore on these topics. There's a pillow there. I'm going to mirror that across the other side, like so. Simple mirror tool. And then we've got a couple more pillows on top, which I'm simply going to copy this, grab whatever that diagonal width is across there. This one's on the 45 degrees, so that should make it a little bit easier to find that out. It is 443 across. So now I can simply grab this cushion that I've pre-made, choose a diagonal, a across X width here of 443, pop that in. Super. I can instantly copy that at a guess and make it the same size as this one up here in an end-on view. This one will be a bit more tricky. I have to go from its most extreme left point, which is here somewhere, and using our across mode, it'll be here somewhere. Let's say it's 388. Like I said, this is an example drawing, and it's in no way meant to be right. You're just giving an idea for our designer. I say 338 across, and I can just plonk these pillows down. Realistically, this one probably sits up a little bit and will probably end up falling to the floor like so, and this one here once again off to the side. Sorry, this one off to the side. We already have that value saved, a move of across, and this final one will sit down here on the flat. Like so. And that's okay, that's not too bad. There's obviously improvements you could make, and if this was in 3D this would be a hell of a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead, do a quick speed up now, because I'm going to do exactly what I just did with the front view with the side view, and I'll see you in a second. That wasn't too painful. There's probably two things that I need to note. The first of which is my pillow alignment here between my front view and my side view is slightly different to what I'd like it to be, so I might have to edit the size of this cushion here just to give it a bit more elevation. Something like that to be more realistic, and same with the little cushion, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now. The second part is how I rotated this plan at the start of that little time-lapse clip, and I do that here with the rotation option. Sometimes it's hidden, you can get to it through the drop down menu over here under rotated view, and I've done mine to 90 degrees. You can click this again, I think as a double click. Nope, just pop 0 back in here then. And you'll see it rotates the plan back around into our standard view. So this is here in our standard view. It's really good for 2D drawing. Sometimes you do need that different perspective. You can type in a degree value here, or using the rotate plan option, you can do a, like I'm doing here, a 1-click, 2-click, and it will rotate the plan in that orientation that you choose. And then you can just go back to 0 in here by typing in 0. Like that. That's pretty cool. Obviously the arrangement of these can vary slightly as well. So as an example, you might choose to turn all of these left, and then you might also choose to turn this here. I'm doing 3 lefts there because I can't remember the shortcut key for right. and you might choose to lay them out like this. That's another appropriate way of doing it. You might also choose, in this case, to transfer these up to here, which is another valid way, often leaving the bottom right hand corner ready for your title block. But that's not too bad. I'm going to leave my sample image in here just so we've got a reference of that, and eventually I'll viewport all of that together for us to have a look at. Make sure that aligns to there, which it looks like it does. Optical illusion. No, it's fine. So that's the bed done. I'm now going to choose my table and go right ahead and do the exact process. I'm not going to run you through it in terms of a detailed and elaborate talk through, mainly because it's exactly the same as what we did here, and most of you will have grasped the concept. So I'm going to go ahead and do a desk, and I'll be back in a sec. Great, so that wasn't too painful. Looks okay in my opinion. It's not too bad. Could have spent a little bit more time on it, but we won't today. So now that I've got this layer all done and dusted, there's one more thing that I need to do. So I'm going to go back to our organization panel here. This is the last thing we'll do with design layers. I need to make a new design layer called, let's call it bedroom layout. And what we need to do is just place the plan view of these items inside the bedroom itself. So I'm going to turn off the table detail and I'm going to leave the bedroom layout, the bedroom set and the base theatre. I am going to make my table detail the active layer though, which allows me to stay here on this table layer, and I'm going to select the top view of the table. I'm going to copy that And then I'm going to jump across to our bedroom layout, and I'm going to place that desk somewhere in this room. Let's just say we're going to pop it up against this wall here. And because my set's on a bit of a funky rotation, I'm going to grab my rotate tool and just swing that around down over here. That's perfect. I'm going to do the same thing with my bed. So I'm going to go to my bed details layer. Here's all the bed detail. Grab all of this. I'm going to group it for my purposes. Copy it. And then I'm going to jump onto the bedroom layout and paste it in there also. Now you could also create symbols of these, which would be a great and efficient way to do it in the future if you had several items to paste in. In our case, we're just going to plonk these ones down. Put that over there. And once I've got this tool, I can rotate that around onto the parallel of the wall like that. And obviously in a second I'm also going to place down a plan view of my lamp, which I may as well just do now. Looking at one of them, there's quite a simple one that I'll choose, which is just a spherical lamp, it looks like, which is going to be represented something like this. And we'll see if we can do an inner core and a center post with 4 branches coming off it. Once again, this is really just a quick one. Something like that. Do a itsy bitsy subtraction from here. Click the surface and delete, which will give us that nice hollow section in the middle. And then a simple 4-way copy rotate. One around there, one around there, and lastly one in this direction. So we're just going to call that my lamp as it is. And the chair, I'm just going to do the box chair. So once again, having a look at the briefest of view of that, we can make a guesstimation on the side, which it almost looks to be a cube. We'll say that it's 500 by 500. Now of course that should be, no, slightly larger than that, sorry, apologies. Let's make that 800 by negative 800, and I'm just going to change the drawing style of that so it looks a little bit more proper. Something like that. It's got a side post that runs down this edge. I'm so used to my 3-point. Seriously, the 3-point is where it's at. That's where, if you're going to be a pro drafts person, leave it on the 3-point all the time. You'll never really have to deviate unless you want to. It's got some boxes down the side here, so I'm going to draw one. And they come in about 150, I'd say. Got another smaller box here which is almost cube-like. It's about 200 by about 150, and there's a filler space in the middle somewhere like so. There's a couple of cushions as well. We may as well just trace those in while we're here. It comes to about there. The rear one heads up and actually overflows slightly onto the backing board, and then there's another cushion in the middle which we might just represent with this rounded rectangle like that. So like I said, it's just a plan view of the other 2 objects, just so we've got some more things to throw in the space. We'll grab all of that and group it, and we might plonk this right up here on the 4 stage on a nice kind of opposing angle, so that someone could have a little solo position inside there. One of the things I commonly do there is a cut, delete, and then paste back in place. So we'll say that that's our set layout there, which is looking rather nice. And now we go on to presentation. Presentation's often where people lose a lot of marks because they don't quite approach it in the right way, or they don't know what the actual requirements are. So it's really important when you do any of these assignment tasks that you really do read the outline, make sure that you know where you're heading with the assignment. So in this particular assignment we need 4 pages, all of which are A3. We've got the first initial one, which will just be showing this background layer here, the theatre, and the set itself. And then the secondary layer, or the second sheet layer I should say, will just have this, the sole bedroom, plus the furniture arrangement on it with a few dimensions. And the last 2 will have individual representations, much like our design layers currently. The first thing I like to do is set up one of them and then copy and paste that as your initial layout. So I'm going to go to Sheet Layers tab up the top here in our Organization panel, choose the New button. Now, as I've commonly said in several videos, there's your own numbering systems. You can use whatever you like. I like this numbering system, so I'm going to stick with it. And this sheet title, we will call this Final Theatre Layout. And this is where I most commonly have the edit properties after creation ticked, just so when you hit OK, it instantly takes you to here and you remember that I have to change these values. I'm going to jump straight into the page setup. I do not have an A3 printer connected, so I'm going to choose an A3. And once again, printer setup here, and you want to make sure you choose a landscape mode. This is one out there for those Vectorworks creators who are watching. I'm going to reiterate this point again. I don't believe that this option here for orientation should be in this menu. It confuses so many people. When you're choosing a size unavailable in printer setup, you should be able to choose here whether that initial ISO A3, for example, is in a portrait or landscape situation, not here in the printer setup. But that's something for the Vectorworks makers to decide. Hit OK, and hit OK again, and we end up with this, a lovely little page, looking kind of groovy. Next thing that I'm going to do is throw in my sheet border, so I want to go to the Dims and Notes section of my advanced toolset. Scroll on down here to sheet border. Some people get confused because theirs will say VAA title block, like so. I don't have any objects selected, so that's fine. If yours does say VAA title block, it's a simple hold and click to get back to the sheet border option. You'll get this lovely trace around looking object. I'm going to do a double click here. It doesn't have to be on the center of your page, but it's handy. At the same time, I'm going to select title block from here. And once I've selected this, I can click on the drop down arrow and choose one of our multiple title blocks. Now, I'm going to use a custom one just for this exercise. Let's say custom title block 2. That's a nice simple one, but you could obviously have your own created, or you could make your own from there. As I've done in several of my videos, I have a formula. I'm going to run through it now. Just for those of you who can't remember, it goes a little bit like this, and I find this is the best for A3 and A1 pages. It goes 8, 0, 8, 0, 9, 16, and a grid size of 10 to 8. I'm going to say 8 for an A3 page. It's kind of up to you. And it will look something like this. Gets rid of that side and bottom border. It gives you the other ones around the outside. Nice little drop in font size as well. You can also throw in your details here. This is particularly handy with the old, what I'm calling old sheet border. So this is going to be a fictitious my reference, the reference can be multiple things. In this instance, it's sometimes a file name reference, sometimes it's an actual reference for the sheet. Seeing as we've got a file name field, this reference will just be Final Theatre for me. Drawn by JR, and you can pop today's date on if you want to. So we can pop in 8/6/14. For those of you in Australia, that's how we do numbering here. Those of you in America, it's back to front for you guys, obviously. And CAD file name can be whatever you like. I normally put star.star if I don't even know the file name itself. Hit OK. That's updated down in there. Simple double click. And we're good to start putting viewports in. The one thing that I'll probably do right now is duplicate this sheet 4 times. It's a handy time saver for later. So I can just go duplicate, 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 duplicate. Whoop, one too many. And that means that we've automatically got 4 of these identical sheets that all have the sheet borders, and all the only information I need to update is this final reference inside here. So we're going to jump back to our base theatre and set this up to look a little bit prettier. It's looking okay at the moment. I am going to jump into my organisation panel. I'm just going to, let's see, turn our bedroom layout off. And I'm going to put our base theatre to grey and have this as our active layer. All of that could have been done from the window palettes navigation panel, this one here. Currently on classes at the moment, but on the layers tab you get those exact same options, and this is often really good to just have open floating on the side. I'll keep it open for the rest of this lesson. And you've also got your layers option here. Once again, be very careful. You might get stuck on active only and none of these properties will apply. So it's always good to have a grey snap others or a show snap others selected depending on the situation. We're going to do a grey snap in this particular instance. So I'm really happy with that. we need to go create viewport. From here we get to enter a few bits of information about our viewport. So this one here is going to be our final, if I can spell it correctly, our final theatre. And our drawing title is often the same, so I normally do a copy and paste. Just to remember, the viewport name is purely what you'll see. It's in your listings in terms of navigation and classes and stuff like that. That's never really a public name, but this drawing title will be a public name. If you ever put a marker down, it's going to adapt to that particular name right there. Create on layer, well, we want to put it on this one, the first of our final theatre layouts. Our layers are fine, we set those up. Scale I'm going to leave and just show you where that scale is inside the object info just afterwards, and all the rest of this is okay, so we throw down that okay. You can see just hidden behind there is our tiny little page, and this is our theatre now 1:1 scale. Instantly I'm going to drop this back down to 1:50. Obviously if you changed your scale in the past at the start of this drawing, you wouldn't have to be doing this step. Advantages and disadvantages showing through already. And then I'm going to grab this, shuffle it down slightly in the page, just so we've got the first 4 or 5 rows of the theatre shown. That's looking okay to me. And then we need to do a bit of crop action. So we double click on the viewport, select crop from the edit menu, hit OK. The one rule about cropping, once again, when you see this orange border, it means you're doing an operation at the moment, or you're inside an operation. The one rule about cropping is you must leave with only one 2D object. So we're going to do our initial crop by drawing a rectangle around our page. You notice that I am slightly nudged in from the sheet border, but then I also want to discard this area behind my title block. So what I normally do is do a secondary rectangle inside here, just like that. Go back to my cursor tool with X, select both of these, and then it's a right click on that and clip surface. And we get this kind of weird jagged shape that will highlight here in orange where it comes around. And when I hit exit viewport, you'll notice that it's lovely. It's just cropped right around our title block there, perfectly as we needed it. So there's 2 more things that I now need before I can finalize this section of the drawing, the first of our pages. I need to draw a setting line and a center line, and I need to put a scale bar in. So let's do those 2 things. Double clicking on the viewport, select annotations from our edit menu. And now we're inside the viewport annotations. It's important whenever you're doing dimensioning, scale bars, titles, all of that kind of stuff, especially when you're working in this mode, that you do jump inside that viewport annotation, because it adapts to the scale of the viewport, not the page. You can see our ruler has changed to fit the contents of this viewport, but our text styling is relevant to the page. That's really important to note. First thing I'm going to do is the scale bar. Let's throw one of those down. I'm going to pop mine right here in the bottom left hand corner. It'll ask us a few bits of information. I'm just going to take a pot shot here and say that it's going to be 4 at 250 and a major length of 1 meter times 4. We'll see how that turns out. It's actually not too bad. We'll just take that adjust units tag off it. I love putting it back into millimeters, which is good for me. My style by preference is normally either the flip or the checker. If you are using the checker, make sure you throw a fill on top of that to make it look a bit savvy, if you know what I'm saying. And sometimes the printed height is a little bit too big on A3. Let's drop that back to a 5 so you can see it like so. That's straight out just done. Easy marks right there. The next part about it though is the center line and setting line. So this is kind of an important one. For me it's going to be quite interesting. I'm going to make sure that my center line is right here. This can run off the back edge a little bit because I want to make sure I get our CL in there. Now that center line, it should be, it's kind of, there's a lot of conventions going around. My personal one is that it should be a line type of dot dash, and that's a long dash and a short dot. So we'll see if I've got one of those saved here. There it is, long and short, something like that. As you can see, long dash, long and then short, long and then short. And obviously we'll put our CL marker on that. You can type it in manually. I'm going to try out using the centerline marker here. Pop one of those down as well. Style 1, beautiful. And our setting line will most probably run across the front of our stage, whether it's a proscenium or not. That will obviously vary depending on your director or whoever else you'd like. So I'm going to draw this line from here. And I might actually, the reason that I had this on this mode before is the center out mode. Allows you to draw identical lines across like that. There's a couple other options that I use here sometimes, and I'm just going to throw this out. You can use the fill line option and replace the word fill with SL. That's really good for dashing across, but in this I'll probably just use the short dashed constant and I won't label it today, but you could another day. That's looking okay to me. We would play with the line weights if we had a bit more time, but most of these will probably just be a medium fade on those. The center line obviously has a little bit more emphasis, in my opinion, than the setting line, and obviously the line weights of the drawing need a little bit of work. The walls need to up a little bit of thickness. Probably some of these could drop back. But without a printer and without looking at it, we're going to call that a day on that sheet. We need to move on to sheet number 2. Just quickly running through. So jumping onto here, this is not our final theatre, so I'm going to change that reference to bedroom layout. Super duper. Okay, so we're going to jump back to our design layer. Let's jump onto the bedroom set and try and get everything into view. Okay, there we go. So turning off the base theatre and turning on the bedroom layout, and this is jump back to active only. You've got to really watch that, where you want to show snap others in this case. So I've got these two now active and shown. That's lovely, that's what I want. So I'm going to go view, and I'm going to create another viewport. This one will be called bedroom layout. In both of those, we're putting it on SL02. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to attempt to scale that to 1 to 25. I'm not actually sure if that's going to fit. If it doesn't, we'll drop it back to 1 to 50, or we could obviously choose a weird scale if we'd like. So let's go ahead and grab our 1 to 25. Oh, it's going to come close, that's for sure. Yeah, that's going to fit. We'll make it fit. I'm going to grab my rotation here because I could rotate the viewport internally, but it's just easier to rotate it externally like I've just done. It's done a rotate and copy, but I'll just get rid of the one behind. So that's looking quite nice, snug inside there. Nudge it down a few points. And just to run back through your mind so that you don't lose this skill, we are going to do some brief dimensioning. It's a quick little double click on there. Jump into the annotations. Notice the ruler. We've currently got 0, 50, 100, 150, 250, which is the size of this A3 page. When I hit OK, those figures significantly jump to the thousands, and that's what you want to see. I'm going to grab my unconstrained. No, constrained in this case actually, because everything's at right angles, and do a few dimensions. So some of the ones that would be relevant to us is the overall length of this wall. Zoom in and try and get that if we can. There we go. 825, and we should be able to do a breakup of that to make sure that we've got all this correct. So this one here should be 925 from memory. Excellent. And you can do this with the chain dimension tool as well. What I'm doing here, I'm only doing it this way because I've only got 3 of them, and fingers crossed this one should end up being 7,000-ish. Just using my snaps effectively there. Now we've got 7150 because that's actually including the outside wall. So we want to make sure that we can bring that back into here, like that. Beautiful. And then on the exterior, we've got a few of those as well that we want to mark up. We want to do the interior door, just to show that that unit size is in fact what it's intended to be there. And we could also, as I'd marked in my drawing, the center point of that door, we'll get an insertion snap in there if we need to. We've got the overall length of the stage playing space, which is from here to here. Just for drawing clarity, I've noticed a lot of students this year particularly crossing these lines over, and they don't have to cross. You can pull them back like that. It just makes the drawing a little bit clearer on some of these intersections that you don't actually need to cross that. And this little wall here as well that we just want to note is 1000, like so. You could also flip those dimensions, and it's normally, in most cases, you'll try and keep dimensions all to one side, so it'll normally be top left if you can do it. In this case I'm going to also include a right hand side, but it's neither here nor there at this point in time in your drafting careers. Later on down the track you might have a template that you're meant to follow. I'm going to leave it at that for the dimensioning of that. We still need to put in our scale bar, and obviously it's going to be different to our previous drawing. It's going to be similar but different. It's actually remembered our scale from last time, which in this case might be appropriate. Let's keep it like that. That's not too bad. Doing a checker on top of that, and I'm also going to do a fill over there double tap escape, go back to X. And that's not a bad looking sheet if I do say so myself. So our final two sheets, I'm just going to go through and relabel these sheets here. So we've got the, I'll call this the final bedroom layout. We're going to have the desk detail and the bed detail. Oh, of course. That's better. Super. Now that we've done all of that, we're going to jump back to our design layers, head on over to the table. Let's start with that, table or desk. I'm going to turn off these layers, and the only thing we want to see is the table detail. Something like this. So to mix this up a little bit, I'm going to grab this image that we've got, shrink him down a little bit, throw that over there. Just give these a little bit more spacing to them as well. Cool. We'll see how that looks on a page. So from the Create Viewport menu, once again, this is the desk detail. Going to do a select over the top of all of that, copy, tab, paste, jump down, move it over to the desk, take a stab with a 1 to 10 on this, hit OK. It's not too bad. You can click our zoom to page if we want to, which will take us right inside there. And plonk this on top. Okay, I'll obviously jump back into this viewport and fix this image up just to give it a bit more alignment, so I can jump straight back to that design layer from the viewport. Notice the orange border, which allows me to go straight back to the thing that I was working on, just to center that up a little bit more. So there's now two things that I want to do this drawing, and then we can finish up the last one and be done with it. The first of which is that I want to do scale bars, so I need to go inside the annotations and take care of that. And then I'm going to discuss why I don't want to put drawing labels inside annotations in this one exception, and we'll talk about why. Scale bar, going to grab that, plonk it down. I can already see it's going to be too big from the last time that we tried this, which is fine. What are we going to do here? Let's mix it up a little bit. We're going to do 100 millimeters for 5 divisions. And then we're going to do 500 for, it's going to have to be 3 divisions inside there. Beautiful. We're going to throw this on the checker and decheck the adjust units box. And if making sure that I get a solid fill on top of that, like that. So you can see here, just choosing a logical division of your major division. In this case, I've chosen 500 as my major division, and I've chosen a logical breakdown of that, which in this case is units of 100. Just happens to make that work out okay. Now, drawing labels are amazing, don't get me wrong. You can place these down and they will be adaptive, but there is one error, which is that you cannot have more than one per viewport. The solution comes in two parts. A, if you're doing this as a 3D drawing, you would have no option. But A, you can break this down into individual viewports. So you would have this component of the desk as one viewport, the top view as one component, the side view as one component, and then when you give each of them their drawing label, it automatically adapts not only to scale, but also to the name of that viewport. Now in my case, can't really be bothered doing that, so in this, and it's the one exception that I would ever tell you to do this, your drawing label can go directly on the sheet layer. Let me just refresh that so it adapts back to this scale. There we go. Now, two disadvantages obviously to doing this as well. A, adaptive scaling won't work, so you'll have to do manual scaling, and B, you won't be picking up drawing titles automatically. That's okay though, I'm just going to deal with it. So, plonk this one down. There we go. Plonk this one down as well. So we're going to get label 1, label 2, and just to line this up again, label 3 up in here. All of these at the same time are going to select. You can see it says actual size because it's been placed on the sheet layer, not inside the annotations. I'm going to grab that and choose a custom and say I always like to put the page size on there just for people who are scaling up and scaling down. It's a good idea. So I normally do a 1 to 10 at A3. That'll apply to all 3 of those. Excellent. And then we can go through and label each of these if we'd like. Just coming up here, we have a drawing title of side elevation. Super. This one here, once it's refreshed, is going to be a front elevation. It's not a section because we're not cutting through the object as you might do in the 3D world. And this one here is a plan view, in my opinion. We'll leave the reference image for now, deal with that later. That's looking okay. What I am going to do, and this is a little bit sneaky, is I'm going to copy the entirety of this viewport and all 3 of these just to show you layer adaptability. So I've grabbed all 3 of these markers and the viewport in the background. Holding down Shift and clicking on those, I'm going to copy those and jump to our bed detail and paste them in place. Now, this might seem like a little bit of an illogical step, but that's fine, it's okay. Still waiting for my computer to catch up here. It's been a long day for my computer. Almost out of hard drive space. What we're going to do is change the layers here, and I'm going to choose the bed instead of the table. So that was a simple swap over there. Change the visibility of the table off and the bed detail on. You can do that at any point in time here. By doing that, I get this right here in front of me. First thing I'm going to do is lay the bed out and see if it fits here at 1 to 10, which I think we are perfectly going to squeeze that in conveniently enough. Give that a little bit of a nudge down here. That's going to look awesome. Just for me, I'm going to jump back inside the design layer and just shuffle these 2 up a fraction. Maybe one more. Yeah, that's looking good. And that gives us room to relocate our friendly little scale bar over here. After a nice little double click, jumping into the annotations, we're going to grab our scale bar, drag him down here into the bottom yet again, giving us just enough room to sneak a label in there. You might have to move up just again. One more notch. Super. So using these convenient labels that I already have from our previous drawing, I can drag these around. So this one here, this time, is our side elevation. Lovely. And our front elevation as well. I'm going to do a sneaky Shift and then a Control equal for me, Apple equal for you on a Macintosh computer. Jump up there and align those to the top, which just makes it really easy for me to drag this across. And then I'm going to do a similar thing here, just dragging this arbitrarily into place. Managed to say that word this time. I've had 2 failed recordings where I can't say it. And selecting both of these, hitting a Control equals or a Apples equals for those on a Mac. And I'm choosing the left align option this time. Look at that, that's not too bad at all. It's possible we'd want to put some dimensions on and stuff like that. But in terms of an example layout, it's not too bad at all. We need to change our title block, which I probably need to do in the previous one. So this one's going to be bed detail. The advantage in using the other type of sheet border, the VAA title block, is that all of these automatically update with your sheet names, and there's a lot more drawing coordination overall, including batch PDF printing, which is a godsend. If you've used it before, you'll know what I mean, because it just is so good. And that, my friends, is the assignment. That's it, literally. I'm just having a quick skim through here. We've got to export as PDF, which I'll show you the link to. In this particular example, it's just a file, export, PDF, and because we're not connected to an A3 printer, you want to make sure you just have the option selected that says export the whole printable area as one page, and that'll be just one of those for each of the pages, essentially, just a quick snapshot. Like I said, VAA title block is the boss because you can go batch print and send all of those out as a PDF at once. Just as an overview though, and I'm going to close our navigation and go to a full screen. This is our final page here. Looking okay. I need to put a setting line marker in there, but that's not too bad. Moving down a page, this is our bedroom layout, our fictitious bedroom in this particular case. We've also got our desk here. It's a nice little drawing of the desk, scale bar included, and our bed view as well. Well, that didn't take me too long. It's been an hour and, I don't know, 10 minutes or something like that. Pretty happy with how we went today. If you have questions, queries, if you'd like to get in contact, as always, details at the end of the video, also in the description of the video. Have a great day. In terms of upcoming content, there might be a few more videos to do with our postgrad classes. We'll see how we go. Third year classes have wrapped up for the year, and I have a whole heap of footage from our augmented reality day, which is going to come up very, very soon. We had a lot of fun and a lot of queries about it as well, so keep an eye out for that. And second and first year classes start in about 4 weeks' time, so get your queries, questions in. As always, I'm James Russell, and I will talk to you real soon. And just before I let you go, a couple of people have been asking if they can donate towards the channel. I have started a PayPal donation fund for the channel, currently funding augmented reality projects, 3D scanning, printing, and of course future videos and tutorials. So if you'd like to get on board, the details are available if you click on screen now or in the description below, and everything is much appreciated. Thanks guys, have a great time.